Hi, everybody. I'm Pratibha Agarwal. I'm an immigration attorney based right outside of Washington, D.C. in Arlington, Virginia. And I'm here today to answer all of your immigration questions, but also I wanted to get started with a topic that comes up pretty often in my practice. Again, if you're just joining me, I'm streaming on both Facebook and on TikTok. TikTok users, I think there's a slight delay here. Our handle is at Agarwal Immigration on both platforms, but I wanted to get started today on a question that comes up pretty often in our practice, which is, I'm out of status. How can I get work authorization and a social security number? How do I get a social security number and work authorization and I'm out of status? So one of the most important things to know about obtaining work authorization is you can't just apply for work authorization. So that's not something that you can apply without some other kind of basis, right? So you can get work authorization in a number of different ways and based on a number of different applications. So work authorization is not independent. It's kind of a supplement to, it's added on to some other kind of application. So let me give you one example. So one way in which we help our clients to get work authorization is if they're married either to a U.S. citizen or a green card holder, and they're the victim of abuse. And so this happens, for example, with people that are out of status or they came into the U.S. illegally, and they either have a U.S. citizen or a green card holder spouse, or another situation is they entered the U.S. illegally and they have a child who is 21 or over and a U.S. citizen. So if they have these relationships, no matter if they're in status or if they entered illegally, they may be able to qualify for a green card. And when we submit their green card application, we also submit their application for work authorization. So that is one way, and that comes usually about 6 to 8 months after we submit that initial green card application. They'll receive work authorization. So the green card application may go on for a little bit. Usually it takes about 2 to 2.5 years to get that green card application. However, they'll be able to get their work authorization much, much sooner, within 6 months or so. So if you're out of status, you really can still technically be eligible to receive work authorization if you qualify for some other kind of application, right? So if you qualify for some other kind of application, a green card application, that's if you're married to a U.S. citizen or a green card holder, or if you have a child who's 21 or over and a U.S. citizen, you may be able to receive work authorization in as soon as 6 months if you qualify, even if you're out of status or if you entered the U.S. illegally. So call us for a consultation to see if you might qualify. We are at 703-348-1663. Again, my name, if you're just joining me, if you haven't seen me before, if you haven't joined me on live here before, my name is Pratibha Agarwal. I'm an immigration attorney, and I work with all types of immigration cases. So cases where companies are sponsoring individuals for different types of green cards and visas. I represent the corporate clients as well as the individuals in different types of visas. We help with humanitarian cases. So these are victims of crime, victims of trafficking, victims of abuse, which is one of our most common case types. And then also family-based immigration, student visas, literally everything you can think of, immigration. So we only practice immigration law, but we don't practice anything other than immigration law. Our clients are all throughout the United States. Many of them are international as well. We only do immigration though. So if you have anything other than immigration, we likely will not be able to help you. Let me say hi to our folks that are joining us today. Hi, Montu. Montu has a few questions. Hi, Christian. Great. So Montu says, I have one question. I'm working at a gas station and the customer filled up his gas and ran away. And I called the police to find him. Great. Yep. So I think what you're alluding to, Muntu, is one visa type. It's called a U visa, and it's for victims of crime. So if you're out of status and you witness a certain types of crime, you might be able to qualify for a U visa for cooperating with the police. And the U visa is a really exciting option, especially right now, because it used to take quite a bit of time to get work authorization based on a U visa. So it would take years to be able to be eligible for work authorization based on a U visa. The law just recently changed so that when you apply for a U visa, you can also apply for work authorization. So that is for victims of crime that are willing to cooperate with the police and help them prosecute some kind of investigation. So that's basically what a U visa is. But not every crime will qualify. So I'd have to find out more from you, Montu, about what happened here, about what this person might have done. I would suggest calling us for a consultation. We can certainly review the case, see if you might qualify. So it has to be a qualifying crime. So it could be, did the person threaten you? Did they say anything to you? Did you feel afraid? There's just a lot of different things that might go into what this crime may have been, and essentially even what the police charged this person with. So I would suggest give us a call, and we can definitely let you know if it's a qualifying crime. If you do qualify, you'll get work authorization usually in about 6 months. That comes with a social security number, which is a huge benefit for some people that don't have a social security number right now. But it could be it's as long as it's a qualifying crime, and we need to kind of figure out what exactly happened, what the police charge him with. So I would suggest calling us for a consultation. We're at 703-348-1663. Our consultations are done by phone or by Zoom based on your preference. So you let us know. I like Zoom because it's kind of like this. If you like talking to me like this, if you like asking your questions like this, I would suggest try Zoom if you can. And we can share documents. We have process documents that we have that I can show you the step-by-step process for each case type. So we can do all that. And I can give you more information via Zoom, but by phone works great too. We just email the documents that I would otherwise be looking at with you on this screen. So if you're just joining, my name is Pratibha Agarwal. I'm an immigration attorney. I'm based outside of Washington, D.C. in Arlington, Virginia. Our clients are kind of all throughout the United States. Some of them are international also. Hi, Sunny. Nice to see you. Thanks for joining. All right. So let's see. I thought I saw one more comment, but I might be missing it here. Great. All right, great. So the other question that comes up a lot for us. Hi, Sophia. Hi, Esther. Say hi. You guys, let me know where you're from. Hi, Vicky. Nice to see you. Hi, some other folks here. Great. So the other question that comes up a lot is in our practice is people that entered with someone else's visa or passport. If you enter with another visa, someone else's visa or passport, meaning a visa, not an American citizen passport, that might be problematic. However, if you entered the U.S. with someone else's visa or passport, and that was many years ago, now you have a child who's 21 or over, who's a U.S. citizen, are you able to apply for and receive a green card while being in the U.S. without having to leave the U.S., right? Because it's scary when people want to leave the U.S. or where you're required to leave the U.S. because you have a fear that you might not be let back in. So we want to minimize those chances and see if there's any way for you to be able to apply for and receive a green card without having to leave the U.S. if you entered illegally. So it is possible. It is possible that you may be able to process the full green card right here in the U.S. If you're eligible, you may be eligible to be kind of quote unquote self-sponsor without your child's help or really even their knowledge. If there are certain circumstances in your relationship with this child, let us know. Call us for a consultation because it is possible. Many people do qualify in this way, even if you entered illegally with someone else's U.S. visa or passport. And what we're talking about today is also getting work authorization, right? So if you do qualify, we can submit this application. You would then receive work authorization in about 6 to 8 months. You would receive a green card in about 2 to 2.5 years. All right. Okay, great. So let me see. Okay, Esther says hello. John says something about my outfit. I'm not sure what that is. Thanaji is saying, how long will it take to get an EB3 EAD after biometrics? Thanaji is, that's an interesting question. So you may have had your biometrics completed. So I don't know if you actually submitted your adjustment of status application. If you submitted your adjustment of status application, that means that you can get a EAD within months, about somewhere between 4 and 6 months. So you'll have to kind of take a look at that and see if you've submitted your adjustment of status application. It sounds like you have. If you've already completed biometrics. So a couple months after biometrics, you should be able to get your employment authorization document. So as an overview for people, this is Tanaji is asking about an employment-based green card. So a company, maybe not the one that she's at right now, but a company sponsored her for her green card, for her employment-based green card. Essentially, for people from India and China, there's a wait time that involves whether or not when you can submit your green card application, right? So for people from India and China, you can't necessarily submit it right away. There's a couple years wait time before you can submit a full green card application. At that point, when you submit that full green card application is when you get your employment authorization document. Okay, when you apply for your employment authorization document, I should clarify. So once you're eligible to submit the full green card application, you also submit, usually, our firm will also submit an employment authorization application, and that would get you a work permit while the green card application is pending, which can take over a year in some cases, or sometimes 2 years in some cases. You will have the ability to work legally anywhere in the U.S. When this application is pending. So that's basically what that is for, to be able to let you work legally in the US while the green card portion of that employment-based application is pending. So it's actually really freeing for people that are on H-1B because you're not tied to a specific employer. You don't even have to work for the employer that is sponsored your green card. You can work really for anyone. Obviously, there's some pros and cons to working for someone else if one company is sponsoring your green card, but technically you can work for anybody. You're not tied to that specific employer. Many people at this stage can also have their dependents working as well, like their spouse or children. In some circumstances as well. So give us a call if we can help you with any kind of questions on employment-based green cards. If you are the beneficiary of one, or if someone is sponsoring you for one, I work with these quite often and be happy to talk with you about timeline, eligibility, and all of that as well. You can call us for consultation, 703-348-1663. Esther says, I'm from California. Great. Hi, Esther. Thank you for joining. Seems like Mr. John here is asking Esther about whether or not she's single. That's interesting. Maybe we're trying to make some matchmaking on here on our live as well. Tanaji says, I have N400 biometrics just arrived, and in the meantime, I'm moving to a different state. What should I do? You should every time you move, if you're not a U.S. citizen, so this is also for you green card holders that might be watching, you have to let DHS know that you've moved. So you can do that online through a form called AR11. If you Google USCIS address change, you have to let them know within 10 days of your move. So you should definitely do that. Hi, Rohit. Nice to see you. Hope you're doing well. Esther, wow, there's a whole conversation here between Esther and John. We're matchmaking here on our live. Montu says, great work, thanks, you're welcome. I'm glad you're here joining us. Mit says, still, how long is the wait? Oh, sorry. So the question is, we applied for an H-1B through a green card. Now we're waiting for EAD and travel documents. It's almost 8 months. So depending on where you applied, so I don't know if it's Texas Service Center is taking a really long time right now. So it's not unusual, but you can always check the processing times online, see how long those applications are taking. We tend to premium process these applications, so we get a response usually in about 2 weeks. So that's just what our clients like to do. But feel free to call us for a consultation. We can always help you figure out is the wait time normal? What options do you have if the wait time is not normal? All right, you can reach us at 703-348-1663. Tanaji is saying, can I work remotely from my apartment in a different state with an H-1B transfer? So your location, Tanaji, has to be, I don't know what was listed on the LCA. So as part of the H-1B application, so H-1Bs are really, really specific with their requirements, and you really can't violate them, or you're putting yourself out of status, which is going to impact your ability eventually when you apply for a green card. So H-1Bs are kind of tricky, and it's really important that you follow the rules, that you're in compliance. So the first thing I'm going to tell you is you should talk to the company and the lawyer, the immigration lawyer that's working with your company, if you're on H-1B and you have any questions at all. So H-1B visas, just generally speaking, they limit you, or basically what the purpose of some parts of the H-1B is to show essentially that, we're not bringing foreign workers from abroad that are willing to take wages that are much less than U.S. workers. So we don't want to drive the wage levels down. That's kind of the public policy behind H-1Bs, right? So that's the understanding. So when you apply for an H-1B, when you apply to sponsor an H-1B as an employer, the employer has to make a promise. They have to make a promise that I will pay this person what you, Department of Labor, is saying that they have to be paid in this specific location. So it's based on the actual pay and the location. So that's why you have to tread very carefully when you start looking at moving when you're on an H-1B. So if you're working remotely, which is really common in the pandemic, right? If you're working remotely, it has to be within a certain distance, basically within commuting distance, right? So that is arguable, that can be slightly arguable, but it has to be within commuting distance of a location that's already been listed in your H-1B application. If it's a different location, you may have to file for an amendment, or the company would have to file an amendment to your H-1B to keep you in status. So that's something you have to really consider, is that has this location already been disclosed? Has there been a similar location already disclosed? But you can't technically just go off and work in a different state. There are some exceptions to like short-term working in a different state, some exceptions like that. But I would say generally speaking, you should, consult with a lawyer to make sure that you're not putting yourself out of status here. Okay, because that will impact your ability to get a green card in the future. You can give us a call at 703-348-1663 if you'd like to schedule a consultation. But Tanaji, I would say, don't risk putting yourself out of status. Wow, Esther and John are having a full conversation here. It's wonderful. Matchmaking on my live. Great. Well, I'm glad to see. There's some more questions here. I guess it's taking me a little bit for it to load. Okay. All right. So Hardat says, hi, good day. I need you to handle. Absolutely. Call us. We handle all types of immigration cases, business immigration, humanitarian cases, victims of abuse, victims of crime. We help families reunite, so we can certainly help you with your immigration cases if it has something to do with immigration. So give us a call, 703-348-1663. And for those of you that may be wondering, we're located right outside of Washington, D.C. in Arlington, Virginia. Our cases are all throughout the United States. Our clients are all throughout the United States, so feel free to reach out to us if I can help you with your immigration case. Okay, you can call us for a consultation. That's the first step, 703-348-1663. Montu says, thank you so much for your information. God bless you. Oh, you're absolutely welcome. I'm glad I was able to be helpful. Tanaji says, how long does it take to process the I-129? Is it based on a state? No, it's based on the service center. So there's several service centers, Vermont, for example, California. that process an I-129. It depends. I would say if you're regular processing the I-129, it's going to take about 4 months or so. It might take longer, especially because with H-1Bs, I know, Tanaji, that's what you were asking about. With H-1Bs, they tend to issue RFEs, right? We are doing a little, for us, we try to front load and make our application initially very, very thorough. So for our cases, we don't tend to get as many RFEs. However, it is very common for H-1Bs to receive RFEs, which is a request for evidence. So once you apply any kind of application, you might get a request for evidence from the government, which means they don't have enough information about your case. They want more, and they'll usually tell you exactly what they're looking for. So H-1Bs are really common in terms of receiving RFEs. Again, we don't actually get them very often because we try to make our initial application as thorough as possible to keep it streamlined. That's not always the case, so sometimes you can't help it. But they take about 3 to 4 months. I'm going to tell you that I-129s are eligible for premium processing, which means that you can pay an extra $2,500 to the government to adjudicate, to make a decision on your application within 2 weeks, 15 days. So that might be a benefit to you, Tanaji. That's something, there are restrictions on who can pay for what with H-1Bs, but for premium processing, you can pay to premium process your application if you want. Okay. Esther says, I did ask a question. Yeah, you did, Esther. I hope you find somebody here, so don't worry. Did you ask me a question? I said, let's see, am I missing your question? I'm not sure, Esther. I might have skipped it. Feel free to put it down again. Someone, Binu, is asking, do you think the dates will move for EB3 until September 2018? I don't know. I never actually know. Ranger says, hi, after a year, I got mail that my green card case transferred to a new office. It's now in Kansas. It's okay. Sometimes they transfer cases around to different service centers based on how busy they are. So it's actually a good thing. That means that the service center you applied to before is backed up and your case would have been delayed. So now they're moving it to a different one that has more time to process your case, and hopefully it'll go faster. So that's okay. Ash is saying, are immigrant visas being processed? Yes, yeah, we're getting tons of approvals, actually. They are being processed. So, yeah, if you have a question, keep me posted. Ash says, my cousin applied for an immigrant visa 2 years ago and nothing is happening. So it does take a couple of years, but they are being processed. We've just received a bunch of approvals recently on immigrant visa cases, green card cases in the U.S., outside the U.S. So there's a lot. So give us a call if we can help you. We're at 703-348-1663. Tanaji says, or at the same place. So I didn't get your first question, so I apologize for that. For new asylum case having a legal entry, when can we expect an interview? It kind of depends on your location, since you'll be applying at the local office. So it just depends on when you can expect an interview, depending, usually within like a couple of months, I would say. They're processing them a little bit sooner. Tanaji saying, my wife lives in Florida and I live in Illinois. I'm the principal applicant for my wife's I-485. Our interviews will be separate. I think it'll be your interview. They may have her come where you are located. I've never seen it be separate, but I guess it's possible if you live in a different location. It's going to be an issue if they're going to look very deeply into your case, because you have to show that you're married and it's a real marriage, not just for immigration purposes. But anyway, this might be slightly complicated, you might want to call us for a consultation. We're at 703-348-1663. Candy says, I received a letter that the case was approved and he can apply for an I-485. And when I found out from a lawyer, and they said he has to wait until I become a citizen. Sorry, I am not seeing let me read the whole thing. Candy says, hey, I have a question. I'm a green card holder and I sponsored my husband at the beginning of this year. I received a letter that the case was approved and he can apply for an I-485. But when I found out from a lawyer, and they said he has to wait until I become a citizen. Well, usually if you're a green card holder, your husband has to be in status to be able to apply for a green card. So if you are sponsoring your husband and you are a green card holder, your husband has to be in some kind of lawful status when you apply for the green card, right? So if he came in on a tourist visa, he might be in lawful status. An I-485, for example, should have been maybe filed at the same time as you filed the I-130, which is essentially, there are two parts of the application. So, if you didn't file it at the same time and now he's out of status, it might be possible still for him to submit the I-485. But it depends on the circumstances. It depends on the state of your marriage. It depends on some facts related to you and him. So what I would do is call us for a consultation, because if he's eligible, we can tell you if he's eligible to still file and not have to wait until you become a citizen. I would suggest that he call us. He may be eligible to get work authorization in about 6 to 8 months, and he would be eligible to also get a green card in about 2 to 2.5 years. Otherwise, he would likely have to wait till you become a citizen, or maybe there's an option to file for a waiver. But again, there's different ways, and we have to be able to talk to you to be able to tell you if he can move forward with that second part of the green card application. Okay, call us for a consultation. We're at 703-348-1663. Ranger says my work permit will expire in 3 months. Okay, well, if you qualify to renew, we can let you know. We're at 703-348-1663. Hi, Sanjay. Great, guys. It was so nice to see all of you today. I think those are all the questions that I had today. Again, I hope that the information we provided in the beginning about work authorization was helpful to you to understand how you get work authorization if you are, if you're here without status. How you might get work authorization just generally if you don't have it already and you want it. Anyway, if we can help you with a consultation, give us a call. We're at 703-348-1663. Athanaji has one last question here about $2,500 is what it costs to premium process your case. All right, that's for the government. That's not us. It's for the government. We don't actually charge extra for premium processing or not. Okay, guys, nice to see you. If you don't already like us on Facebook or follow us on TikTok, go ahead and do that. We're at Agarwal Immigration on both platforms. All right, so I will see you soon. Bye, guys. Have a good day.